Hey guys, welcome to Mara's Junk Drawer. I am Mara, and today we are doing week 4 of Black Menvember. Okay, what is that? Yes, we're doing week 4 of Black Menvember. So when I started Black Menvember, it's going to be like a total of 5 weeks because when I first started Black Menvember, should I take my glasses off or are we good? I think we should be good. So when I started Black Menvember, so the first week, like 4 week of November was like technically like the second week because like the first week was like the first, so I think November started on Friday, so that Sunday through Thursday was October. But that weekend when I started Black November, I had ate up those 3 books in week 1, so I decided to put that as week 1 instead of putting those books in with the official week 1, which would have just been like too many books to talk about at once. So that's why my weeks are like breaking down into like 5 weeks. So I still technically have one more week of Black November, which is next week, which will be the week of Thanksgiving. So my Black Menvember reading updates are like real time. Today is Sunday, as well as I will need to post this video today. This is my second time recording this video, so go ahead and give me a thumbs up on this video. Show your girl some love because the dedication is real. Okay, the first time I recorded it, it just felt rushed because if you're a mother, then you know, like trying to find time to record a video is just it's just hard. And it's not always my children that are a factor. There are other things that factor into making it hard for me to produce a video of my liking, of quality that I appreciate. Of course, I could just record a video and call it a day, but no. I'm very much a perfectionist. And not that my videos have to be perfect, because that's one thing that I'm just trying not to fall victim to is perfectionism, because we will never be perfect. We can try our best to strive for perfection, but not to the point where, we're being unrealistic. So, yeah, here we are. I decided to re-record the video because I didn't like how the first video came out. I just felt like it was very much rushed. And that's one thing that I feel like I need to do a better job of, is not feeling so rushed to do my videos just to say I created a video and upload it. Because yeah. So yeah, so today we're going to be doing week 4. Oh, I said all that to say, as far as like this video being real time, the vlog that you're going to see after this was the vlog from this previous week. So in that vlog is pretty much a sick vlog of me being in the thick of my sickness. So today I do feel so much better. So thank you to all of you who just, sent me goodwill wishes and, sent your girl some love. Like, hope you feel better. Whoop de whoop. Appreciate you guys. So yes, I am feeling so much better. I still do have like a congested cough, and sometimes my nose will get stuffy, but for the most part I have my energy back and my ears are unclogged, baby. The day my ears unpopped or popped for them to become clear was like the best feel. I was praising God that whole car ride because I was just so thankful. I could not stand a stuffy nose or clogged ears. Like, that's the worst feeling ever. Okay, so I've already been talking for 4 minutes about absolutely nothing that has anything to do with books. But so we're going to get into the books. So the first book I'm going to talk about is James by Percival Everett. Yeah, like this was one of my most anticipated books for November, or specifically Black Menvember, because so many people have been talking about this book, and even like other, platforms like book platforms are rating this like the number one book of the year. I think Barnes said it was like the number one book or something like that. Don't quote me. But yeah, so I read James by Percival Everett. I did also read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I read that back in the summertime. Maybe I read it in August, or did I read it in July? Okay, I don't remember, but I read it sometime back then. I didn't talk too much about it because, one, so many people have read it, and two, it is very hard to read as a Black person due to the context of the book. Like, okay, so the book is written by a author. We know who the author is, Mark Twain, right? His parents owned slaves, so he grew up in racism, pretty much. Him not being so much racist, but that's just he grew up in a time where slaves were slaves. And the language that he uses in his books is very much like Nigger. It's like very aggressive language like that. But I will say I did like that story, but I'm not going to compare it to this because we're not talking about that book. We're talking about James by Percival Everett. I will say I am, because this book was inspired by that story, you cannot tell me that a book was inspired by something and me not read it to figure out. Like, curiosity is always going to kill my cat in most situations because I'm nosy. So I am glad that I read the book, but at times it was hard to read this because I was comparing it to The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn so much just because I read that book and it was still fresh in my mind from reading it in the summer, that my brain was just naturally going back and forth between like the parallels of both of these books, and it was kind of annoying because I really wanted to be deeply in this book, but my brain kept going to The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn only because he pretty much stays on the same storyline, and so my brain was remembering like the other book. So it was like I was almost like reading two books at the same time, which was kind of trippy, which is why I kind of wish I read this one first and then went back to read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So that's the only con that I have like between the two books. I'm not going to compare them because there's nothing to compare. But yeah, so James by Percival Everett, I absolutely love this. This is like my new comfort book. I absolutely love the tone that Percival Everett created for James, or Jim. Jim is the slave from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but James identifies as James, but his slave name is Jim. So I appreciate the tone that Percival Everett created for James. He's such a warm-hearted man. His soul is so warm. I feel like Percival Everett, of course, I don't know him in real life. I don't know who he is as a person. I have not read any of his other books, but I feel like he put his soul into James. He did such a good job with creating the tone, the character of James, that I feel like James is a real person and he's just such a beautiful man. Like, he's a protector, a provider, a loving, kind-hearted man. Like, by any means necessary, he's going to take care of the people in his life. And he stands on big business as well. Big business. Like, if he was not a slave, if he was like, he would be the perfect book boyfriend in a romance novel. Like, that's just how warm-hearted he created this man. Like, this man was like the perfect husband, the perfect father. And so, like I said, Jim is the slave on the plantation with Huck. So Huck is being raised by, I can't remember this lady's name, but the lady that owns Jim, she takes care of Huck because Huck's mother passed away, and then he has no guidance from his father because Huck's father is pretty much a drunk and he's extremely abusive, which Huck is underage. I can't even remember how old Huck is. I know he's not by law. I don't know how old you have to be to own a slave, but in the book, there was times when they were on their adventure of the Mississippi River when they would pretend, Huck would pretend like James was his slave or Jim was his slave for his protection. But like, a lot of times Jim would say like, that's not going to work because you're not even old enough to own a slave. So I don't really know how old Huck is, and I can't remember if they said how old he was in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but he's very like, Huck is very not emotionally, yeah, emotionally or mentally immature, because he has no guidance. He doesn't have like parental figure, like his actual parents taking care of him to teach him the things that he needs to know. So he's being raised by the woman who owns James. So Jim, the slave James, ends up finding out that he's going to be sold. So when he finds out that he's going to be sold to a different plantation, he tells his wife, Sadie, and he does have a daughter, Lizzie. But he specifically tells his wife, Sadie, like, listen, I'm about to run away. I'm going to hit my cut. I'm going to come back for you and Lizzie because he does not want to get sold to another plantation. So he hits his cut as well as the same time Hook ends up running away as well because, he wants his freedom too because he's just so sick and tired of his father. So Hook hits his cut. So Hook hit in his cut. Him and James end up crossing paths on the Mississippi River. And then they end up having this adventure together on the Mississippi River to find freedom. Pretty much both of them. Of course, Huck is free, but he just wants to be independent and away from his abusive father. So back at home, where on that plantation or whatever, they think that Jim unalived Huck and ran away, unalived Huck. Well, unalived Huck and ran away. So there's a number out on Jim's head, like, bring this slave back, dead or alive, and here's a cash value for you. So that's pretty much it. I don't want to say too much because it's going to give away the story, because basically it's just them going up and down the Mississippi River, and the people that they meet, they do end up getting disconnected at one point on the river. And so you'll see James, what he had to go through, and it does not really narrate to Huck's point of view because this is James' point of view. Huck's point of view. So good. So Huck's point of view, you would have to, of course, go read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But I did love, there's a character named Norton. Is his name Norton? I think his name is Norton. And he's a passing black man, a black man passing as a white man. And so that was a very interesting dynamic to the story. And I really loved him and James' interaction. And I felt so bad when they got to a certain point of their relationship, because I just wish both parties could have been able to move forward. But once you get to that part in the story, you'll know what I mean. But outside of that, I do think Percival Everett, every time I see his name, I think of Percival from the movie. I think is the movie called Gloria with Whoopi Goldberg, because the little boy in that movie, his name was Percival. It's like Percival's mom knew that he was about to be a deeply rooted, soulful man, okay? But because with a name like Percival, baby, you better be a soulful man. But anyways, I think he did a good job with telling James' perspective. I love how, because the slaves are portrayed to be as stupid, ignorant, rightfully so, because they're deprived of all resources. But in this, James is not. James pretends like he's ignorant, and he teaches his family or the people in his slave quarters slave talk, so that the masters think that they're dumb. They don't know how to read and write, but they actually do know how to read and write. And so I did love that. Like, James is such a beautiful man. Like, I just love the tone of his character. It was just such a beautiful character. Like, he did such a phenomenal job writing James. And I will say, you do not have to read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn to read this, because like the first, I would say 10-20%, it pretty much sums up what is going on in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But I will say Percival Everett put me in a slave narrative rabbit hole, because in this book, James ends up obtaining a copy of a narrative of William Wells Brown. Is that his name? William Wells Brown. Yeah. So in the book, James, the character James, ends up obtaining a copy of narrative of William Wells Brown, a fugitive slave. So of course, if you give me a book recommendation in a book, I'm going to read it. But I decided to read it because I have William Wells Brown Clotel, or The President's Daughter, on my bookshelf. And I've always been wanting to read it. It's definitely giving classic. So I've always wanted to read this and I haven't read it yet. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I can, eat up his memoir right quick just so I could get a feel of who he is as a person before I dive into his memoir. Why won't it let me go back? So the next book I read, because of Percival Everett, put me down a slave narrative rabbit hole because he mentioned this book, the narrative of William Will Brown, a fugitive slave. So this follows William Wells Brown. He was of mixed race. So his mother was, of course, one of the slaves, a black slave, and his father was one of the men related to his master. So he was born in Kentucky on that plantation, and then his master ended up migrating over to Missouri. And I had no idea that Missouri was a slave state because all the slave narratives that I've read, they don't ever mention Missouri, but William Wells Brown stated that it was a slave holding state, so they would just hold the slaves there in Missouri, pretty much round up the black people that they wanted to sell into slavery, and they would go down the Mississippi River and sell most of the slaves coming from Missouri were sold to New Orleans. There was a slave pen that so he was owned by his master, but then his master would lend him out to other masters to work, which is so strange. So, anyways, he was it was almost like you would rent a slave for a certain amount of time to do work for you. So, the man that rented him for a year, he would drive the boat down to New Orleans to drop off these slaves to a slave pen in New Orleans, and they mainly only went to New Orleans. So, I had no idea that Missouri was like one of those slave states, but so yeah, William Wells Brown, born into slavery, and he ended up escaping. I think he became free in Ohio, and then he moved to Canada. But so I'm just going to share with you guys. His memoir is under 200 pages. So, I mean, you guys can really eat this up. But I will say it was hard to read. This is it's been a minute since I went down a slave narrative rabbit hole. And the last time I've been this mad, angry, is when I read Roots back in grade school. Not read Roots, when I watched Roots back in grade school. That every time I watch Roots, it just makes me so mad. And this made me so freaking mad because, of course, this is realistic. It's a slave telling you what actually happened. Like, you can't discredit it. So I'll just share some of the things that I've highlighted so you guys can catch a little glimpse of some of the things or the tone that he set. So he said, my father's name, as I learned from my mother, was George Higgins. He was a white man, a relative of my master, and connected with some of the first families in Kentucky. So he did also state that when he was in Missouri, Missouri had just became a state. So I can't remember what year he was out here in Missouri, but yeah, this is something that he said about Missouri. And baby, I love the way he's name dropping. Like, this master did this man did this man, and then he also dropped the name of the slave. So somebody needed to see that was their family member. They would have a little bit of truth, because we don't, as black people, we rarely are able to go back that far. So I love that he was name dropping, like first and last name, like pinpoint, he did a good job with this. But this is another one. He said, though slavery is thought by some to be mild in Missouri when compared with the cotton, sugar, and rice growing states, yet no part of our slave holding country is more noted for their barbarity of its inhabitants than St. Louis. Like, that's crazy. So, even though it's mild, it's still, if not the same but worse than the more southern states. And then at the end of the book, he gives you a whole rap sheet of different articles of what certain these men were saying about slavery, certain laws that were in place during that time. Um, let's see. So he did escape with his mom and end up getting caught, and him and his mom was taken back into slavery. And baby, that was such a heartbreaking moment. Bro, that was just, y'all gotta read that part. That part was so sad. One of the things that he did, because when he became free, he was heavily into making sure that he could free as many slaves as possible. So one thing I highlighted was, in the year 1842, I conveyed from the 1st of May to the 1st of December 69 fugitives over Lake Erie to Canada. He was not playing no games. Another one that I highlighted, slaveholders hide themselves behind the church. A more praying, preaching, psalm singing people cannot be found than the slaveholders at the South. And this, bro, this is so disgusting. So this was from Martin's Digest, active June 7, 1806. Slaves shall always be reputed and considered real estate, shall be as such subject to be mortgaged according to the rules prescribed by law, and they shall be seized and sold as real estate. How disgusting. Like, who are you as a human to say another human is not human? Like, make it make sense. Like, y'all, if there's any books out there that like explore the psyche of people who perform such hate generation after generation, like, there has to be something that, of course they have done that to us black people, what that has mentally done to us as a community. But has somebody even studied like the hate on their side, like to perform such actions? Like, I mean, like, these is nasty, dirty, downright evil, generation after generation after generation. Like, that has to do something to their mental, like that makes them like you're really sick, like you're really sick in the head. Like, imagine like what that does. Like, you know how transgenerational trauma like is passed down, like that. There has to be something like that. I don't know, let me know if y'all have read any books on that. Let me read y'all one more and then we'll get into the next book. So this one is from the Columbia, South Carolina Telescope. It says, "Let us declare through the public journals of our country that the question of slavery is not and shall not be open for discussion. That the system is too deep rooted among us and must remain forever, that the very moment any private individual attempts to lecture us upon its evils and morality and the necessity of putting means in operation to secure us from them, in the same moment his tongue shall be cut out and cast upon the dunghill." I don't know what a dunghill is, but so he just shows you like all of these different, um, you know, different laws and stuff at the end of the book. So the last book I read is Growing Up Urkel, a memoir by Jaleel White. Here's the back. Yeah, there's the back. Oh, Adam Sandler blurbed this. So yeah, I liked his memoir. He does have pictures in his. I love when people put pictures in their memoir. Like, it just makes your book so much more dope. So his memoir is mainly centered around show business, duh, because since he was younger, he's been on Family Matters, being, excuse me, being Urkel. But he does narrate his own memoir. Y'all know I love me a memoir that's narrated by whoever's memoir it is, like, baby, it is crucial for you to narrate your own memoir. If you can't, cool, but I'm gonna eat it up every time. I love hearing people narrate their own story. Like, it does something to me. It's giving very much documentary, and I love me a good documentary. So yeah, his he does narrate his own memoir, and it is pretty much centered completely around show business. Like, him just going through his rap sheet of all the projects that he has done as an actor, starting with Urkel. Beautiful Black Man. He does not mention any trauma in his memoir, so it's a nice, wholesome, this is my story memoir, and I loved it. Like, a nice, healthy Black man telling his story. Shout out to his parents, because his parents, they was making sure they was locked in when he was on Urkel, that no one took advantage of him. His mother and father did a good job, as Black parents having a little Black boy in show business. Like, they did their thing. So, in his memoir, he does talk a little bit about his daughter, just a little bit, like the challenges that he had to go through, like, as far as like custody and stuff. He talks about his dating life, and then most of the rest of the book is pretty much all centered around TV shows and movies, like how that industry works, how he got played. He was name dropping who did him dirty, this person, like, so it was like mainly centered heavy around that. But there was a point in the book where he was talking about, when he was talking about his dating life, how he was certified lover boy, and there was just certain moments, like he was hanging out with this basketball player. I can't remember which one. Was he basketball or football? But of course, like, them athletes, they get the girls. And so he was telling this story how he was talking to this girl and she kept blowing him off, like, yeah, we're gonna hang out. And the athlete that he was hanging out with was his friend. He was like, give me her number. So Jaleel ended up giving the athlete her number, and she was like, cool, bet, we could link up tonight. And it just made me, he didn't say that he was a corny dude or he's a cornball, but it was giving very much like, this is the man that girls go after when that thug or that bad boy does them dirty. Then they want to go run to the good guy, and after they've been ran down, ran through, like, no, boo boo, mm. But yeah, this is the man that like Jaleel is, or Urkel, whatever you want to call him, Jaleel. He is the man, like, the what he was saying in his book, I don't know about now or who he actually is in real life. Of course, he's only going to tell what he wants to tell. It's a memoir. It's not like, you know, but he's only going to tell who he is from his perspective. And but based off like the little scenarios that he was giving, it just sucks that, like, that type of man, like, they don't really get the recognition or appreciation that they deserve, because most women are going, like, most women that they probably are attracted to, or like the attractive woman, they're not going to go after men like him, because they want that man that's aesthetically pleasing or aesthetically acceptable for social media. um you know until those type of men do them dirty, then they want to try to come back running to the good guy. And I just hate that for women so bad. Like, we got to do better. And I mean, some women, they don't care. Like, they're going to go after that man that's going to do them dirty. Like, because they're just so deeply rooted in just an image for social media, especially nowadays. But yeah, I enjoy his memoir. It made me want to go binge watch Family Matters, which I probably will after I get done with this video. While I'm editing, I'll probably turn it on because I love Family Matters. But yeah, I enjoyed his memoir. I think it's worth it if you want to, if you're someone into memoirs and you like listening to people's stories like I do. I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, so that's all the books that I read this week for Black Menvember. I'm trying not to stay down this slave narrative rabbit hole. But yeah, I'm trying not to stay down this slave narrative rabbit hole because there's other books. I kind of want to read Sky Full of Elephants, The Violent Conspiracy. I don't know why this book is like calling my name for some reason, because I don't know nothing about classical music. And so far, what I've read just with the first chapter, this guy is very good, I guess, what he does with violin and playing the violin. And one day he woke up, and I think it was the day of his big show or the day before his big show. And there was somebody stole his violin, and there was a note in his violin that says send 5 million in Bitcoin from BISQ to the wallet number. Transfer on July 15 between 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Eastern. You will receive no further communication. So it's giving very much thriller. And so I kind of want to like desperately get into this, as well as I have one more book from what was I about to say? Bill Cosby, from S.A. Cosby's catalog. I didn't read it this week because I was, so sick that I wanted to enjoy the book, and I didn't want to have to keep like reading it, putting it down, reading and putting it down. And it was just such a busy week for me. So I did not want to do that. So I'll probably get into that because S.A. Cosby has been doing it for your girl this month. Okay. He shows up and he shows out, and I cannot wait for his next book. Hey, hey, hey. Okay, but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it this far, I've been talking way too long. If you made it this far into the video, we locked in, okay? And go ahead and drop me some book emojis if you made it this far. But if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to your girl. Let's lock in, because it's what? Nice and chill over here. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up for all the beautiful black men. Leave me some love down in the comments. Let me know if you read any of these books. And I will see you in my next video.